Welcome back to another Spruce Stomper building adventure. We got a real fancy door latch here. Oh, there we go. You may recognize that. You might recognize that. You might recognize that. Or maybe you recognize some of that. Maybe the links are in the description. The Log House renovation series. And soon to be the world famous barbecue shack. Now I tend to lean more to the carpentry side of things and a little bit less to the fabrication side. So a group of fellas that are much more qualified than I am, they led the charge on a steel frame for what I'm dubbing a hurricane-proof barbecue shelter. This, my friends, is 2x2 steel square tubing. Why steel, you ask? Well, the original structure, you might recognize these sassy looking yellow pipes. This was a freestanding structure supported only by 1, 2, 4-inch round pipes that I've been told are at least 6 feet in the ground. And at the end of those are 2 45-gallon drums full of concrete. So I don't think they're going anywhere. With some nice shelves, countertop going in, some wiring, a little natural gas for that puppy, and more meat smoking equipment than I have ever seen in one place in my entire life. What a rare occasion where I come to a job and the prep work is 99% complete. I didn't have to strap it. That was done for me. How wonderful. The windows also being reused. They used to live right there, and now they live right here. I like an upcycled project. And because, you know, I like to share the progress with you folks, I've saved the last window for us to do together. A little infill. This will allow the window to go in flat, because if you haven't guessed by now, the building, well, it's made of steel, so it's obviously gonna get clad in steel. We're on a real cladding run. The goat barn restoration from the previous video, 2 videos ago, there was a washing machine in between, which not everybody liked. But hey, we gotta vary the content. We're back on the cladding detail, and then I filled these in so the brick mold had solid purchase all the way around, and then it'll give us a nice flat spot to put our J trim and just make a masterpiece out of the whole thing. So clients chose the profile. I just gave some input on the measurements, and well, we'll be seeing it for the first time together. It hasn't even been unwrapped. Probably the simplest window prep I've ever done, ever. No tape, no flashing, no, it's an outdoor shed, right? We're not getting wild, it's just not necessary. Up and in, and hopefully fits. Are we flat? Oh yeah. Okay, the wind's picked up here, and this door that I installed yesterday was doing its very best to swing itself to death in the wind. So it's salvaged. When I uninstalled it, I saved everything, but what I didn't have was a latch. We'll make the catch for the latch, and then we'll get this door secured. The only downside of salvage materials is if you break something, there's no getting another. That's all she wrote. What cuts aluminum? Oh, a skill saw. Swing. That looks like a start of a latch if I ever seen one. Let's get rid of this danger. The most important part of any metalworking project, the deburring. It reminds me of being in school for machinist apprenticeship. If you handed the instructor a piece that had burrs on it, he would immediately just go like this, nope, and he'd walk away. You knew what you were doing wrong. You gotta deburr it. Very nice. Alright, well that was the last corner to be blocked. Just gotta do a little trim here. You gotta be careful your wood's not sticking out. Anybody recognize that stuff? Ah, it wintered up on us. So delicate. For anybody that's not familiar, this is what they call a J trim. So when you order your tins, you got to be careful. You got to order the J trim that matches the profile of the tin that you're ordering. So for example, I think a tough rib tin, I believe, is 7/8 or 3/4 of an inch rib. So that's how tall the rib stands out from the surface that it's going to be mounted to. So your J trim has to be accordingly thick with a little bit of clearance. So each rib profile has an appropriate trim that goes with it. Well, this is almost flat, this tin. So that is only 1/2 inch. I think if you worked with it all the time, what a guy would need, and I don't know if they make it, I'm sure they do. Point me in the right direction if you know in the comments. A little baby set of tin snips. Because when you're cutting your reliefs and stuff on this J trim, I'll tell you, she's tight. This may possibly be the heaviest crate that I've ever received in a shipment of tin. So another thing I find that you used to get all the time, but now you don't always get, we have one in this case, is what they call a scratch sheet. So a cover sheet on top of the metal that you've paid for that's going to protect the good metal underneath from damage. Finish this cut off with a pair of snips by hand. Little GoPro's testing my patience. Cold weather wreaking havoc. Having never worked with this profile tin before, I am coming across a few things that you have to be conscious of. I'll mention in the video, I'll look up what the profile is called from Westform Metal in case you're curious. Looks super sharp. It has an interlocking cleat that I'll show you a little up close like this. Now, what I'm having to account for around the windows is where it's been a little bit more, not tricky, but just not what a guy's used to. With the tough rib or a ribbed pattern design, you simply just have to overlap. So it gives you a little flexibility with the window J trims. I find, somebody is probably thinking, what the heck's he talking about? But I wanted to get all the sheets in one piece. So we had one that was quite interesting. I didn't turn the camera on. I don't need to share all my struggles with you. Right in the middle. Now, if you've ever put up cladding before, when you do a building layout, if you can, it's very optimum to have a tin sheet end in the middle of a window, 1/2 and 1/2. So you're sliding 1/2 a sheet in from this way, 1/2 a sheet in from this way is ideal. Having a window in the middle of a sheet of tin, a little bit more tricky business. Now, here's your interlocking deal here. There's the female cleat. And it actually slides all the way back to there, so about 1 inch. So that's the inch I'm saying. You have to account for that side-to-side movement with your trims to be able to, man, the traffic is unbelievable. A country road and these guys are passing each other like they got somewhere important to be. Well, we're already where we need to be, outside. It's gorgeous. Now, when I say low profile, I'm talking, like, look at that. What are we talking? I don't even think that's 1/4 inch of a rib. So the other thing that's made it interesting is how you handle the sheets. Not only they want to curl taco style, which is good. If you're doing tin, remember, taco's your friend. But they want to fold in 1/2 like a birthday card because, well, ribs add rigidity to the profile. So lower the rib, less the rigidity, more adventure. All right, now we'll move on to this side. I like to go in order that the tin is stacked. So all these lengths of sheets for the 2 outsides were first in the pile, minus some little short ones we moved off to the side. That way you're only handling each sheet one time. If you were to unstack all that and move it and scratches. You got a little bit of a tricky spot around the brackets and weren't quite sure how we were gonna handle it, them rolling doors, but I'll show you what we've decided to do here. Forego the J trim because there's no room up top for it. Because as I mentioned, it was already strapped before I got here. So we're just gonna run the tin right up to the underside of the steel, which is gonna look good. And it'll keep all the wind out, it'll block all the snow. All I gotta do is cut out these little notches to go around the brackets. I had to pause and turn the music off. Get real upset about copyright infringement. This down here. Oh, I see an offending culprit there. Just the backer on the J trim catching us up, but that'll all get covered with the corner piece. The corner, it's a 4-inch corner, so I'm gonna like just majestically trim it in to magically hide all that stuff. That's as far as I'm thinking about it. This piece of tin has got more jigs and jags in it than I care to count, so fingers crossed with slipping in place. Mark for the stovepipe, last thing to be cut out on this end wall of this piece of tin anyways. That'll be satisfying. Oh, that feels good. So I opted to just go around. We were talking about cutting that stovepipe bracket off so I could just cut a hole for it to go through because it was put on before the tin, obviously. But we're just gonna put a little piece of tin above it. You won't even be able to tell. It'll be in behind the stovepipe because you'll see the little, point you at me, you'll see the little lap, but it's just a lot more risk, you know? You cut that off, it's gotta be welded back on. This paint is not extremely durable, so welding spatter and the machine coming over here, and it's in, it's done. All right, well, the stovepipe nicely in place and done. This last rolling door, these ones already finished. And well, if you're gonna take the time to do it, we even took the time to make sure that the ribs line up with the wall tin. Classy that way. So we got one left, and well, anything you can do to give yourself a helping hand. Clamps, that's definitely what you're gonna wanna use your speed square for. We'll get this up, some corner trim, and then I had to order some more flashing. We're gonna go ahead and do a cap around the edges in the same Metro brown as the rest of the tin and trims, and that should finish it up. That's right, we're almost done. Ooh, don't those trims look nice? Ties it all together. Let's have a quick look and recap, and then well, we'll get the last half dozen flashes bolted on here. We can be on to the next project. This is indeed the last steps of the barbecue shack project here. We went and capped these rolling doors with a nice color match trim to the corner pieces. That's Metro brown. In my experience with tin, there's very few times people pick different colors. Metro brown, Melcher's green, black and white. Those are probably the top four. This is called buckskin, if you're curious. That color I've never worked with before. Buckskin, I like it. Oh, and I was supposed to mention what the profile of the rib was in this video. I'll still try and remember. So, rolling door is done, that rolling door is done. And then it was decided, well, you like the idea of nostalgia, the wood. I think once you've stared at wood for the last 30 some years, sometimes you just don't want to stare at that wooden color anymore. And the idea was come up with that we cap the wood with the Metro brown steel flashing just for a new look. Like you said, after 30 some years, you probably just get burned out a little bit. So this one's already done. You can see, just real nice actually. And it just slid, there was enough clearance that I was able to slide the flashing in and get a nice tight fit. So that's how it looks. Now on these end ones, you can see there's still wood poking out. You go, well, I can still see the wood. Well, you can't win them all. There wasn't enough room, a clearance in the window frames to flash the inner and outer piece because those windows open and they want them to continue to be able to open. So another little update on the inside. Lights, camera, boop, action. Rocking the power. Look at that. Let me tell you what time it is. Lights, plugs, the microwave. We're going to, what do I got left? 2 windows. And then this this return. All the returns on the door openings are getting flashed. This bottom piece is done, and then it just makes it real nice. I gotta be completely honest with you. I filmed none of that because I quickly realized, well, I am up against quite a task here. These 2 windows are not the same as these windows because those ones open like I mentioned. So, you know, like any good YouTuber, I did one by myself so I can attempt to look like I know what I'm doing on the second one. The trouble was this. I'd gotten this pan bent. You can see here I made a prototype. I tried a couple different methods to decide what I was gonna do, and it stuck out further. This sticks out further than where this flashing ends. And in hindsight, I guess I could have got the flashings made different, but the trouble with flashing when it's not all on the same plane is it starts to have to overlap each other, and well, it just tends to not look as good. So I flattened it out, so then basically we just have this comes down, all the water will run off of that, it covered up all that wood, and then this just is all flat, like completely flat on the same plane. A few color match screws, nice miter. I got a nice tab bent over to cover that edge. And well, I think it's my favorite part of the whole building now. I would say that, eh? Any objections, anybody? No? Huh, good crowd, good crowd. First on the docket, we're gonna make our last pan for the bottom. 20.5 is the inside we want to end up with. So for ease of use, seamer pliers are 1 inch deep. So we're just gonna add on 1 inch or an inch to each side. So 2 inches total. So 20.5, we're gonna go 22.5. Got our little pencil mark there. Take our trim square. So we're gonna mark that where we wanna cut. And then we're gonna just slide that over to the inch mark. We'll draw another line for reference. And then same on this end. All right, so when we cut this off, we're gonna cut it on our cut line. Where we have our bend line, I'll show you actually. We're gonna end up with a little ear. Don't cut the ear off. We're gonna cut back to our 1 inch line like that on that side. Switch snips. We're trying to keep the right hand, or the right snips for the job this way. When I cut to our line, see how it folds that up? If I had to use the green snips, it would have folded that down, and that actually counteracts the way we want to bend this. Then we're gonna cut this back at a bit of an angle, like that. I'll show you why after. All right, so you now have our tab here, that's our 1 inch fold. This tab here, we're not gonna cut that off because our other flashing is gonna overlap. And instead of having a butt joint, which in flashing is near impossible to hide because they don't join up well, if they overlap, it looks real clean. I'll show when we install it. So I'll show you. We're just bend. So there's our 1 inch bend. Just keep it back of the pencil line. You know, you get a bit of a radius, so bend that up to a 90. You can see why we cut that back at a 45, kind of. That way, now when this is all in plane, this isn't gonna hit our other flashing. And the reason you leave these is, again, so you don't just have a butt. You don't want to butt flashings together. You need that tab. You need that tab there, so when this flashing comes down into this one, if there's any inconsistencies, this radius, it's all just gonna look like brown flashing. You'll never be able to tell. All right, so I just gotta bend this back, and then we'll meet you over at the window. That's a real technical measurement, the finger on the pencil. Okay, so that goes there. And we'll measure up a side piece. Now, instead of going and trying to cut this last cut, because what you'd have to do is cut a tab out here so your snips had clearance, and then you could cut this off. And then anyways, because this is getting covered, And I will only recommend this in the scenario where this portion of your flashing is getting covered. Well, then you just go ahead and go like this. There, ta-da, magic cut. This will be for the upper portion, like this. So we'll cut down to our fold line. Again, we're gonna leave that tab bent over. I'll show you when we install it, that tab that's gonna bend over and hide our seam. And an approximate 90, you know. What is 90 degrees? Another beauty of flashing. You just adjust it. Okay, so what I did to get the measurement down to where our pan is gonna start, I measured the window down. It was 44 inches to where the start of the pan is. I took a bevel square with me to measure the angle, the slope of that bottom pan. I just pushed it up against the glass. Then we'll just go ahead and mark it like this. All right, see? That should follow the angle of that bottom pan. This lip will hang down over to match that bottom what? What are we calling that? I have no idea. But hopefully it matches because, well, I got just enough pieces to do the job, of course. All right, not too bad. Now see that? That is, you probably can't tell on the camera, that's a good thing. That's sitting up maybe just like a fraction of a hair, okay? But because we rolled this lip up like that, you have no way of telling that that isn't just a perfect seam, because trust me, it looks like a perfect seam. 2,500 subscribers as of last night. What a wonderful group of folks. Man, I can't tell you how much fun this is and how much I appreciate you sticking with it. We must be a group of folks that loves to adventure around. Or are we just pretending that work is an adventure? Ponder that, eh? But at least we're doing something constructive together. And, well, staying busy's half the battle, you know? Gotta keep your brain engaged. And that's our last piece for the top. Not quite 45s, they're overcut a little bit, steeper angle, so you end up with this overhang. So, I don't know if you can tell, but that little lip bends over the top, and then it's the same height as that, so it all matches. Looks pretty nice. Last piece. Voila! What was wood is now metal. Sleek and maintenance free. Good choice. All right, flashing done. Last but not least, we're gonna throw a couple anchor bolts in the frame. I almost forgot. I thought I need to hammer drill something. Anchor bolts, so